Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the comely Kayleen Williams. We're two authors on a journey to learn more about writing with you, the audience, so thank you for joining us tonight. We are doing a special two-episode series, giving you an insider's look on writers' conferences, and tonight we've got two guests with us. Our first guest runs the Superstars Writing Seminars in Colorado Springs, Colorado. She is the goddess in the machine, from event planning to organizing the presenters, volunteers, troubleshooting, and community growth all year round. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. I don't know what's going on. It's a Saturday night. Let's have fun. She's not throwing writers' conferences. She's an associate publisher and project editor at Wordfire Press and an award-winning author of urban fantasy, children's books, and supernatural thrillers. She's also good friends with our second guest, a New York Times bestselling author, 5-time Bram Stoker Award winner, and comic book writer. His vampire apocalypse book series, V Wars, is out on Netflix now, starring Ian Somerhalder. He writes in multiple genres, including suspense, thriller, horror, science fiction, fantasy, and action, and he writes for adults, teens, and middle grade. His comics include Black Panther, Doom War, Punisher, Naked Kills, and Bad Blood. I'm still going, guys. I'm still going. We're going to get it all. He's a board member of the Horror Writers Association and the president of the International Association of Media Tie-In Writers. He lives in Del Mar, California, currently has a flu, gives writing workshops and lectures around the globe, and he joins us here tonight despite that flu because he loves us that much. Thank you, Jonathan Maberry and Ray Whittaker, for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Ooh, I got through that. Yes.
Wow.
That was a mouthful. Good job.
Thank you guys for joining us. I saw you in February at the Superstars Writing Seminars. How have you been?
Great. Hanging in there, trying not to get the flu or any other crazy virus. Things slowed down finally, so that's good.
And you're already working on 2021.
Oh, yeah.
21.
Yeah, we actually started, my boss, Kevin, and I actually started working on the faculty list even before 2020 when I finally got to meet you in person. So we've been working on 2021 for a good long time already.
Wow.
It's a lot of forward thought, thinking, and planning. So I'm just going to, yeah.
Thanks.
The fun thing about the way this, Marie runs Superstars is if there's anything, like most conferences have something that goes on like hinky behind the scenes, some disaster, but it doesn't show. And she and her team make it look very seamless. And it's a really good model and a pretty high bar when it comes to conferences, because there are some that you can tell everyone is two blinks away from like rushing to get heroin, you know.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, it's good to know it's hidden. Hiccups happen. Didn't really have any major hiccups. This time, nobody like had to, well, actually we had one person that had to cancel because of the flu. One of his kids got the flu, but like I was telling Lauren the other day, we have such a great team of staffers and faculty. I was able to just ask somebody else to do marketing talks, and it worked out. So I didn't pull out my hair.
We had some people falling from altitude sickness.
We did. Yeah, that was it was worse this year, and I don't know why. We drive everybody a little bit nuts in our big Facebook group, telling everybody drink water, limit your alcohol consumption, because we tend to get together and we go to the lobby or to the bar and the Antlers there and have a couple drinks because we haven't seen each other all year. And when you're from here and from altitude, you can hold your liquor just a little bit better than someone who's from sea level. So we try to tell everybody, be careful there. But I don't think any of it was due to alcohol. I think we had a couple cases that were altitude sickness, but they didn't get that bad. And then we had another one. The two people that we were most worried about with altitude sickness turned out to be other things. One was food poisoning, and another one was a condition that was aggravated by the altitude. So, yeah.
I never would have even thought that altitude would suddenly make you sick.
Yeah, it does, and it's not a great feeling.
I got a dose of it the first night because I not only I live at sea level, and you guys are up near Asgard, but also I was on the treadmill for an hour, and get off the treadmill, and then your body suddenly remembers, well, dude, high altitude, you're probably not hydrating enough, you're an idiot, and you feel awful. But if you hydrated, that's pretty.
Yeah, so whatever problem comes your way at a writers' conference, Marie, it's going to be your job to figure out how to solve that. That's got to be very crazy to be in that position, to have to be the one to answer for
it. It is, but and I never thought I would actually direct a writers' conference. I'm lucky to be directing One Like Superstars. One Like Superstars really isn't a good statement, because I do feel that Superstars kind of stands alone. Mm-hmm. We are small, and we have a big tribe mentality, and we take care of a lot of tribal culture. But like my team, I don't have to do anything alone. I have the best team, and they're very resourceful and helpful. My friend Chris actually is one of the biggest. Well, she's one of the best people I can ask any question to about directing a conference, because she has 15 years, and she's the one that trained me to do what I do. So she's a huge resource and is always willing to help. So yeah, there's panic moments and things like that. But this is, I think it's my 5th year, going into my 6th or something like that, with Superstars, working behind the scenes. Maybe it's my 4th going into 5th. But so I kind of feel at home with Superstars, and that helps. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I noticed right from getting off the plane, there were people in the airport waiting to pick me up. And immediately you've got that family that's there, that tribe that's there, ready to kind of welcome you and suck you into their group, suck you into their life, and show you around. I loved it. It was wonderful. So you might be like at the center of that family back at Superstars. Yeah.
We have, so our transportation goddess, her name is Monique. She is the one that heads that up. And Superstars has grown a lot in the last 3 years. So, starting out, it was like just a few people, and now we're up, we're expecting close to 300 this year. And this was only our 11th year. So she's had quite the job tracking all the people and tracking volunteers and everything. She does an excellent job.
So a lot of our audience out there has had various levels of experience with cons. Some of us have been to many of them. Others of us, we've been to none. And we're trying to figure out if attending writers' conferences and cons is worth the time and money investment. But you guys, you're both veterans at this. Could you tell our audience what first drew you to writers' conferences and why you put so much energy into them today? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Well, when I started with fiction, which was, I actually broke into the fiction world in 2006. I was a nonfiction writer before that. I'd only been to one con before that. And I started going to conventions originally, or conferences originally, to just be around other writers. Writing is such an isolated thing that, you wind up being like a mushroom in the dark after a while. You write and you email your stuff off and so on. And as I started going to conferences right before the rise of social media. So this was the way to meet other people. And even with social media, it isn't, that doesn't trump the benefits of being with people, with human beings, others of our species, so to speak, because we get each other. And if you're not a writer, you really don't get writers. I mean, family and friends may think they understand us, but they really don't. If I'm sitting there not typing, that's I'm not writing. I could be sitting on the balcony, or even playing a video game. But if in my office at my desk, I'm working at some, a writer will get that. A writer will leave you alone because they know what you're going through. And the other thing that I really found from writers' conferences right from the beginning is I went into it thinking a lot of these challenges that I was facing, imposter syndrome, what I was calling writer's block back then, a few other things, were kind of unique to me. I thought there were failings in me as a novelist wannabe. But it turns out everyone's hitting different versions of the same thing, coming at it from different angles. And by being together, by talking with one another, we actually find out that, yes, I'm hitting this now, but this guy hit it 3 years ago and has a workaround. And this person is dealing with something else, but I've already figured that one out. So we actually help each other move through the process of understanding the weirdness of what we do and the challenges that we face in both the craft and the business part of it. And you really can't do that long distance. The Writers' Conference allows you that networking opportunity, and also to hear from the speakers who, all of them have been through it. And a lot of them are in it now. Especially with something like Superstars, where everyone there is a working pro, whether they're independently or traditionally published, they're working pro, and they aren't stopped problems. They have solutions because there's always a solution, and they're willing to share it with us. That makes going to a conference of this kind absolute gold.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a really good point. I mean, the camaraderie, the ability to talk to people who get you. You can get out of your own head and into other heads that will, like I said, get you. And that, can't really put a price on that. So yeah, I agree. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I like the energy of a writer's conference. I'm not a competitive person. Some people get energy off of like finding another author to do sprints with, or like the Keystroke Rimo word count chart that we've got. The competing against each other to get in those words. That's great, and that works for some. But at a writer's conference, I love the excitement people have about their own writing. They're telling me about their projects. They're telling me about their stories. You can see the excitement in their eyes. And that makes me think about my book and my story and kind of re-fall in love with it all by seeing that other person feel the same way. And again, I can't get that too much over the internet, but in person, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of throw one more point on that. One of the things about this networking is when we have an idea or something we want to talk about, if you're talking to someone who's not a writer, kind of the idea, but they're not really understanding the mechanics of what's going to go into it. But if you talk to another writer, whether it's over drinks at the bar or between classes or in one of the interactive sessions, when you frame something, when you tell them what you want to write, the other person gets what that means. Not only the finished product of the story, but the mechanics of it, the carpentry of it. And being able to talk to someone in the language we both understand is absolutely crucial. It's a beautiful and very constructive process.
Yeah, I mean, talking about, they're like, oh, people who aren't writers, they ask, well, what are you writing? I'm like, okay, here we go. And I don't know how to say it any other way, so I'm describing it the way I would one of my writer buddies, and it's just there's that energy that's not being reciprocated, and so you just kind of slowly peter off. And I'm gonna walk over here now, and they're just like, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But if I'm stuck on a plot point, I know I can call Kayleen or I can call Scott Noon, and I can work through my plot points out loud with another author because they get me and they get what the story needs at that point. So I guess it can be replicated somewhat over the internet and somewhat by finding friends too. But at Writers' Conference, there's 300 other people there and 300 other connections that you can make, and that's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah. Jonathan, anyone like that in your life? Like any writing buddies you have that you can bounce ideas off of?
Yeah, I have a couple, and actually Maria and I often talk about plot and structure and ideas and so on. We've become friends because of Superstars. But I have a couple of other writer friends, and in fact, one of the funny things that happens sometimes is I'll talk to someone like David Morrell, who's is a top writer, he's international bestseller, created the character of Rambo, and if you never read the book, don't see the movie. It's a really beautiful novel about PTSD. Brilliant guy, professor of literature, and he gets imposter syndrome, and I get imposter syndrome nearly every book. He's on his 40th, I'm on my 38th. And we'll just email each other saying, well, this is the book that's going to kill my career, and the other, whoever, which one of us is saying that at the time, because it goes back. We'll say, tell me what it's about, or send me an outline, and we do it. Like, dude, this is great. What are you talking about? I'll smack you upside the head. This is fantastic. but we don't see it because imposter syndrome never quite goes away, and it probably shouldn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
But by having a colleague I can talk to about this, Kevin J. Anderson, who Marie works for at WordFire, he was one of the first friends I made in the business, and we often will just bang an idea off each other, or sometimes go to a business thing. Like there's something I think he could advise me on, or something I can advise him on. We'll have that conversation. We had one early 2 days ago, in fact, about something. That's the sort of thing that comes out of having met at a conference. I mean, first time I met Kevin was at DragonCon on a New York Times bestseller panel. And, Kevin was one of those guys. He doesn't put a platform, on a pedestal. He's just a guy. And we hit it off right away. And he made it comfortable for me to move into that level of celebrity, so to speak, in the writer's world. He made it normal rather than weird. And it can be weird. And the normalization of it is something that is tremendously useful, because it keeps you from getting also an elevated ego.
Yeah. Yes. That's really important. Well, maybe we can touch back on that later, because that's a really good point that I think we could use your advice on and your experience on. But we have another question for you. You've been to conventions and conferences as an attendee, and also as a big name author. How's the experience different from coming as an attendee versus coming as Jonathan Maberry, here to speak?
Well, weirdly, I've only been to one convention as a wannabe, as somebody who's moving into the biz, and that was the Philadelphia Writers Conference back in 1999. And very quickly after that, I went up on the board of that conference, because I had, even though I was just breaking into fiction, I'd been writing nonfiction since 1978. And I've done quite a lot of that, articles, textbooks, and so on. So, I went up on the board, and from then on, every conference I went to was as a guest. But I've seen what happens with the evolution of a lot of my friends who start off as maybe students in a writing class and then become colleagues as published authors, whether traditionally. And I've seen how the confidence grows when they go from the conferee who's there to learn to a professional who's there to teach and share, but also to learn, because that learning process never stops. I learn stuff at every conference I go to. And, we should always be, receptive to new ideas, new insights into the business. So, I started off wanting to connect and wanting to get well, real quick, here's the story. This is the reason I went to my first conference. I had been doing writing for a long time. I had burned out. I was actually going to quit writing. I didn't know any writers. I hadn't talked to a writer in a long time. And my wife signed me up for a writing class, which I didn't want to go to because I already knew how to write. I was publishing. But she wanted me to meet other writers. And the people running the writers class were running the Philadelphia Writers Conference. So I wound up going to that conference. And since then, that was 1999. Since then, I've published 110 books of various kinds, but not counting comic books and short stories. I walked out of there supercharged. And no matter when I go to a conference, whether it's early as a conferee or now as an instructor, I always leave supercharged if it's a good conference.
That's a really good point. I mean, it can definitely replenish your energy for your craft and the belief in yourself that you can keep going, for sure.
Yeah.
Mary, you were going to say something. I totally interrupted you.
I was just gonna comment that whenever I go to any conference at all, whether it's a really huge one or a small one, I always feel recharged, and I'm always able to, connect with other people who might be at a different level with publishing, or just writing in general, or pick up new craft techniques, just whatever. I think that if you're a writer, you're always going to want to continue to go to conferences and cons because you're always going to be learning. There's always going to be something to learn. Our industry morphs and changes by the week. So there's always going to be something new going on.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good point, Marie, because if because publishing is so flexible and so capricious in the way it's constantly changing, if you're not going to some of these conferences, you might actually miss out on not only the changes, but how to pivot to be in line with the change as opposed to being left behind by it. Yeah. And Superstar is a great example because it's so focused on business. Everyone has a tip for how to stay current.
Yeah, for sure.
Earlier you mentioned that authors can sometimes with all the fame and the fans and the acclaim, it can go to your head, and that could be something that an author might deal with later on in their career versus kind of early on in their career. But how did you handle it? And Marie, you can answer this too because you're the director of Superstars. You've got people looking up to you, and a lot of people kind of very extremely thankful for all the hard work that you put in. But it kind of puts you at an elevated position, and that's not something you deal with normally in life. So, how do you handle that?
Yeah, you go first.
Wow. So I have this thing where I don't like to be on stage and stuff like that. So I get when people tell me thank you for all your hard work and stuff like that. It's different for me than being somebody who's like a best-selling author or something like that. I think it might be a lot different. I just don't know that I am ever going to have the problem that like some people. I'm trying to word this so that I don't sound like I know people that just get too big for their britches or something like that, because the people that that teach at Superstars and stuff, they stay very I don't know, in touch with tribe. Like we can all very approachable. They're very approachable to us. So I don't work with any of the authors or business or industry professionals that have issues with being at a place where they feel like they're beyond talking to people who are just coming into publishing or just coming into writing. So yeah, I don't know. I think I might deal with a lot of imposter syndrome too. And I've talked with Jonathan about this, just about my accomplishments as a writer, because I have a hard time balancing that with my work. Yeah. Because Superstars is what it is, and then I'm also a writer, and so I have a lot of trouble finding a balance between those two, I guess.
And the weird thing about the ego thing, first off, we're all book nerds. I don't care where we are in our level of success. We're all book nerds. I mean, we're all doing the same thing everyone else does. We make stuff up and get paid for it. I don't know how seriously we can take ourselves. We're doing something that's just, as a job description, that's freaky. Make stuff up, they give you money. But there are people who definitely think they're all that, and I've been on panels with them. I know some of them. I won't name names, of course, but they'll get on a panel and they'll dominate the panel. It's their show. It's about them, and everyone on the panel has something useful to say. There's no generosity in them, whereas most people, and I say it is most people, are actually generous when they're on panels. The egotists among the writers are actually a very small. And I think some of them are a little, they believe that propaganda that writing is a competitive thing. And publishing is not competitive. Publishing is a playground where there's lots of room for other kids. And, come and play in the playground. We got cool toys.
We're a giant amusement park.
Yeah. But there's no reason for us to push each other. And a good example of this, one of the genres I write successfully in is the weird science thriller genre. James Rollins is the head of that genre. It was Michael Crichton when he was alive. Now James Rollins, the #1 guy in weird science thrillers, and I love his writing. Jim's a good guy. He's a good friend. But he outsells me. He outsells probably all of the next 40 people in that genre, outsells us together. I mean, he's selling millions of books, right? We don't feel jealous of him. We don't, we're not even envious of him. He keeps our genre alive. And when people read his new Sigma Force book, which will take them 4 days because it's a nice thick book, that leaves a whole lot of year for other books. And not only does the publishing industry want more books than that, Jim wants more books in there. Because if people read his book and then never read anything in that genre again, they might lose their interest in the genre. So the more writers in there creating books that people want to read, the healthier the genre is. So we should be, as writers, not trying to put ourselves above other writers or keep them out, but to try to get as many in as possible and in well, so that they're doing well and getting noticed and so on, and engendering a love of writing. That's something we should all be doing. It should never be a clash of egos. When I was a kid, I was fortunate enough to be friends with Ray Bradbury and Richard Matheson. And one of the things Bradbury told me is his 10 commandments for being a great writer. And I know Marie knows these 10 commandments. Don't be a jackass. Don't be a jackass. Don't be a jackass. See where I'm going. It's a really manifesto for how to get along in this business. Don't be a jackass. Have fun. Be a good guy. Help everyone else. Throw a party in your career, but not a party for you. A party for us.
That is actually a really good way of describing the tribe mentality in the author kingdom. It's you need to have those front running leaders, the really big names that people are like, ooh, this person because this genre and it's fantastic. And then it's like, who else can I find in this genre that writes like my favorite person in here? And and then they'll find new it's like, oh man, they do this genre, but they do this other thing really well as well. It's I love that. It's yeah. I had this great point and then it just vanished right out my brain mass, but it's a good point. I like it.
Made a really good point there, so that's great.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I think I heard you on a panel with Jim Butcher talking about going to cons, and he said number one rule is be kind. Just be kind.
Yes.
Be kind to everyone, and I love that. It's beautiful.
It's all,
Don't be a jackass, either one.
Yeah,
we got to be kind, rewind.
Yeah. I think everybody was starting out at one point. We all needed to learn from one another. We're all at different levels in publishing. And I think that if there's someone out there and you go and you see them in a convention or a conference and you try to learn from them and they do something crappy to another person or to you, that's going to stick in your mind. I mean, you're always going to remember that about that person. I've been there with someone that I sort of idolized and then saw this person do something, that I just thought was a little bit unkind. So those things stick in your mind and people are always going to remember that stuff. I don't know why people have a tendency to remember bad things like first or, more painful things kind of hang in your memory deeper. I don't know, but it seems to me that if you do something kind of, shady to another person, they're going to remember you for it. The more good things that you can do, people are going to remember you for just being an awesome person instead of being somebody who did something crappy one day.
That's so true. In fact, Charlene Harris, she wrote the books that True Blood was based on. One of the bits of advice she gave me early on is don't be the anecdote people tell at parties.
Oh.
The worst anecdote they'll tell is the worst case scenario. Don't be that guy.
This is good life advice, right? If you're going into social situations, and go with an attitude of curiosity, go with an attitude of learning, and also like we're in this together. And don't be a jerk. Yeah.
Don't be a jerk.
These relationships are for 10 years, 20 years longer. It's not just this one conference or this one event.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also a good, from a more self-serving part of this, you also want to look at your own, out for your own career. People tend to want to work with someone who is not a jerk. I know for a fact that work has come my way because I'm easy to get along with. I'm not competitive and I don't step on people. So work comes my way just because they know they're not going to waste time having to manage my ego. Okay, I'll take that work too. I know that when I'm doing something like, right now I'm the editor of the Rebirth of Weird Tales, and I edit anthologies. And I tend to curate my anthologies and curate my magazine. So I only pick the people who are not only good writers, but who are not jerks, because I don't want to work with someone that's going to waste my time and maybe put a little pollutant in the water that everyone else is swimming in for this pool party that we're doing. I don't want to do that. I want it to be fun, and I want it to be business fun.
So that mentality right there is what makes Jonathan really great for Superstars. The people that we bring in, to teach at Superstars, and Jonathan is going to be returning. I'm just really happy about that. It's amazing.
Me too.
But the teachers and guest instructors that we bring in to teach Tribe, they always have that same mentality. It's the thing I said with being approachable. They learn the names of all the attendees, and they're always there to help out. Even when we're not at Superstars, most of them, you can reach out to them, with questions, and they'll say that during Superstars. You're like, if you ever have a contract question or something like that, hit me up. Just, they'll hand out their email addresses or whatever, or, they'll friend you up on Facebook. I know that doesn't seem like a huge thing, but that's really big. It's a big deal. And they just, they know their resources, and they are at the point in their career, because they were beginners too at one point.
And also, there are a lot of writers who just love the concept of generosity. My buddy Chuck Wending is a great example of this. Chuck's a really good guy. Yeah. And he and I, we know each other from Pennsylvania, but when his career started breaking big, one of the things he did is he used his website for a lot of free stuff for writers. Tons and tons of resources of free stuff for writers. And he had to mention it at the end of one of the panels when they say, "Do you have any last comments?" He usually says, "If you need these free resources, come to my website." I thought that was so cool that I immediately went home and put a bunch of free stuff on my website, because I thought, wow, that makes so much sense, because if we are true with our word that we want other people to get into the business and do well, we shouldn't be too much of a moving target. They should be able to find us and get some help from us, at any time. And whether it's contacting us, which, a lot of us invite that, or having resources they can grab, that's the sort of thing that makes it a community helping each other, rather than, people who are considering themselves giants and helping the little people. That's not how the real writing world works.
So, Marie, speaking of helping the little people, what's it like being in your shoes, organizing a conference and organizing all of these authors who are coming to the conference? It's like herding cats or driving Miss Daisy or another.
That's hilarious. It's my favorite part of my job. So before I was directing, I was the faculty liaison. Now I'm the faculty liaison and the director, and I never want to give up the faculty liaison job. Wow. I love working with everybody that comes to Superstars. I wish I got to spend more time with the attendees. Like, if I got to spend the same time that I got to spend with attendees that I get to spend setting up with the guest instructors that we bring in, it would be the perfect job. It really would. But I absolutely love it. So to break it down, some of the guest instructors that we bring in are like me. They prepare, from the get-go, from the minute that I talk to them, we're talking about what they want to teach, and I have their flight information, and we're rolling along and everything. And then there are other ones who are either just so busy or just so like to do things, in the months leading up, or, like closer to the event that, they kind of give me a little bit of a heart attack or whatever. But I've never had anybody, just wait till the last minute. That's not what I'm saying. But I might drive people a little bit crazy with how soon I like to get started with things, just because There's
All right, we got 12 months. Let me hear your pitch.
so many moving pieces, and I see things very linear when I do this job, and it's got to be like this. It's got to happen, step by step, or else I get a little bit fidgety about things. And I think that they put up with me quite well.
And by the way, points for using pajiggity.
Oh, thanks.
But I'm one of those writers. I like actually this being done early because I go to a ton of conferences every year, and I like being able to know what my coming year is going to be, because if I'm worrying about my schedule, I'm not focused on my writing. So the fact that Marie reaches out, actually was talking to me about next year at the conference, allowed me to put it on the calendar, know that's going to happen. And I don't need to wait to find out if that week's taken or something. It's handled, and it's handled in a very professional, easy way. And a lot of conferences could learn from that, because there are some that either they don't know, they haven't had anyone teach them, or they're making it up as they go, and it shows. And it should be a very business structured thing that accommodates professionals who are really busy with their careers. I mean, there's a number of the superstars faculty who we're generating in excess of 2 to 3 novels a year, plus short stories and things. So if we're doing all that, we don't have time to nitpick logistics. If somebody says, this is when we're for the conference, we'll contact you about flights, bam, bam, it's done. It's smooth. And that takes a lot of stress away.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't know. It's like everybody is so busy in this industry, and whether they're a New York Times bestselling author or one of our industry professionals that come and teach, they are super busy. I mean, their careers are just stacked. And I feel that getting started early really is advantageous, to them as well. So I try not to be too big of a bother, but I do everything through email just because that's the way I do things. And I think I might drive people a little bit crazy, because some, like last year, we have quite a few that just would rather chat, and do things that way, which was a little bit different for me. So I just have to be kind of dynamic, especially if it's a new instructor that we're bringing in or something. I got to find out how they like to do things best, because they are so busy. It really is my job to make things easy on them. If they're giving their time, their time is super valuable. And if they're giving us a full week of their time to come and teach our tribe, then I owe it to them to make sure that I do things in the easiest way for them.
James McCormick asks, what does the faculty liaison do?
So from months before, well, let me rephrase that. From about 18 months before an event happens, the faculty liaison works with whoever is either directing, or the founders, or whatever organization heads you have in place, works with them to okay a guest list, a list of teachers, and then the faculty liaison at that point reaches out to them to establish a good working relationship. Number one, that's killer important. Number two is making sure that all of their needs are met. We have a lot of people that have to fly a certain way, or they have certain allergies, like their hotel room has to be absolutely pet free. They are absolutely allergic to any kind of a pet situation, like our hotel at the Antlers. There are pet rooms. I have to make sure they get in rooms that aren't pet rooms, just things like that. And so establish a relationship, number one. Number two is figuring out what they're going to do at the program, because I already know what they have to offer, but I don't know what they want to offer. So I have to work with them to see, how many talks they want to give. A lot of people, like Jonathan, he's like, I'm going to be there, go ahead and put me on everything, work me, stuff like that. And other people are like, I'm going to be new to the altitude. I only want to, I need to do one thing teach one class per day and just a couple little panels here and there so that I can be sure and go up to my room and stuff like that and rest or work. A lot of them work. Jonathan last year was under a huge deadline. The whole time he was at Superstars, he had to go and work. So after that, programming. Okay, so programming is a beast. It's really a monster. And the faculty liaison has a huge job there too, because they work to compile all of the data for everything that's going to go into the program. And then they give that to the director so that the director can start working on the program. And then when it's like kind of a rough thing, then it's time to really communicate what's going on with the program to faculty. And then we always book our flights like in the fall, just because we found there's typically a price break. I book travel for all of our guest instructors. And that, again, that good working relationship that I established months ago really comes in handy then, because they trust me at that point, with really important information. Travel information it's sort of a big deal. So at that point, it's time to book travel and hotel rooms and things like that. And then also, if anything happens, they need to feel secure in the fact that there's someone that they can talk to, while they're at the event or something like that, making them comfortable, making sure that everything just goes really smoothly for them, and they have like the best experience that they can have, so that they'll want to come back and teach, and so that they get just as much out of the conference as the attendees. That's my goal, is everybody has got to leave with a smile, really. Jonathan, the first thing he said, and I thought this was really cool. I think this was in 2018. I think that was the first time that you came, or 17, 18 maybe. Yeah. So he's like, I hear a lot of people throwing this tribe word around and stuff like that, but you guys are the real deal. He goes, I feel like I am really part of the tribe. Well, I was like, that's the goal right there.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, when I first heard the tribe thing, it was a little off-putting at first because it sounded cliquish, but it's turned out to be just the opposite. It's inclusive. It's like, come and play with us.
Yeah.
And now I love, and I noticed the other conventions since Superstars have started adopting the tribe word, but none of them had it before you guys. So
true story.
All right, with that, I'm going to take a really quick spotlight break. Tonight, this week's book spotlight is on Rage, a Joe Ledger and Rogue Team International novel, Rogue Team International Series, Book 1, by Jonathan Maberry. From New York Times best-selling author, creator of the Netflix series V-Wars, Jonathan Maberry comes the first in a brand new series featuring Joe Ledger and Rogue Team International. A small island off the coast of Korea is torn apart by the bioweapon that drives everyone, men, women, and children, insane with murderous rage. The people behind the attack want Korea reunified or destroyed. No middle ground. No mercy. Soon, Japan, China, and the United States are pushed to the brink of war, while terrorists threaten to release the Rage bioweapon in a way of pure, destructive slaughter. Joe Ledger leads his newly formed band of international troubleshooters in their first mission to stop the terror cell, fighting alongside agents from North and South Korea. With the lives of billions at stake, Ledger is willing to bring his own brand of terror to this frightening new war.
I should read that. Actually, writing this right now, just last week. So,
wow! Congrats.
Thanks.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun. Rage is either the 11th book in the Joe Ledger series or the first book in the Joe Ledger Rogue Team International series. It kind of spins off. I'm having so much fun. Last time was the Superstars. I was writing one of the Joe Ledger books, was finishing it at Superstars, and it's just too much fun doing what we do, and it's fun to be able to teach at these workshops, talk with the conferees, and then go up to your room and knock out 1,000 words or 2,000 words. that it's the best life ever. It's best.
Do you ever get fueled by the news? When I see coronavirus on the headlines, I think about your books, and there's a couple other authors who write pandemic kind of stories, but you take it's way more interesting than just like a cold. You've got zombies, right?
And some of my books are zombies. I write every book in the Joe Ledger series is a different kind of weird science. The rage virus is not a zombie thing. It's actually based on a neurotoxin found in nature. So it's actually something that can be weaponized to do what it does in the book. But I actually have a comic out now called Pandemica, which is about a bioweapon virus being released across the country, and it's a more aggressive version of what we see in the news right now. Issue 4 just came out on Wednesday, and I'm thinking, I really hate it when my science fiction becomes less fiction.
I'm like, oh shit, what did I do?
And not so much. I mean, viewers sorted out. I wrote that in 2011. About melting polar ice releasing ancient viruses, and we're seeing that happen all the time now. It's like, I should write a book about people just giving me puppies, because and it'll be a happier ending.
Do that. I'll pick up that book. I'll read it. I want to read it. Well, I like that you mentioned leaving the conference and going up to the room. When I went to Superstars, I wanted to do all the things. I wanted to go to all the lectures, meet all the people, and by the end, I was totally exhausted. Whereas my roommate, who'd been coming for years, I noticed she started disappearing, and I was like, "Where'd Julie go? Where'd Julie go?" She went to go take a nap or to go walk.
Yes.
And Rebecca were leaving to go write and get work done. There was people who've come multiple years new to kind of like pull back a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Is that something you kind of learned or pick up on as a coping mechanism, or just sticking with it mechanism?
Yes, that's very important, to give yourself breaks. A lot of writers are introverts, number one. I'm one of them. I run away to my room every time I get a chance just to breathe for 10 minutes. And I think that helps everybody. Whether you're an extrovert or not, you're taking in a tremendous amount of energy being in an environment like a convention or a conference. There's a huge amount of energy. You need to be able to just go and take a break and get a snack, lay down for half an hour, take a power nap, check your email, ground yourself some way so that you have the energy to go back down and get everything that you want to get out of the conference. With Superstars, our program it's just been getting more and more robust over the last 2 or 3 years, and this next year we're going to have our instructor list is humongous and diverse and wonderful this year. We are going to have such a great program. Take a break, give yourself a little bit of time, go to your room, just settle down for a minute, look at the program again, make sure you know exactly where you want to go, and try not to be, running yourself ragged the whole time. Just give yourself a minute.
That is definitely the easiest way to get yourself into con cred.
Yes.
You need to up, your vitamin intake. You need to drink your water and take your breaks, or you're not going to be feeling good even, by the second or third day. So.
Yeah,
and also, work has a lot to do with it too. I mean, even when I'm at a conference, I'm on a deadline. So at Superstars, I was still getting at least 3,000 words a day done, sometimes 4. So I got, in the 4 days of the con, I got just under 18,000 words written, while still teaching and getting my meditation and everything else. Because I find it stressful if I don't get my work done. So I have to go, after I do something, I run upstairs, dive right in, and luckily the conference charges you up with the desire to write anyway. So you go up and just dive right in.
Yeah. Your little octopus finger is killing me.
I actually buy the 100 weight. I give them out conference, because why wouldn't I give out tentacles? I mean, I'm not sure why anyone would not.
No.
They're sticking out of my a whole bunch of them.
So you make that sound easy, like, oh, I just leave off my peopling and then go dive right into writing. Is there some kind of like plotting technique or strategy that you use to be able to kind of like get right back into the story writing?
The main strategy is, I've already cashed the advance check. And I like Kevin Anderson. We're both high output writers. We write a lot, and we write every day, and it's become the habit for what we do. I mean, my first novel took me 3.5 years to write. My ink, the one I just turned in, the actual writing time, not counting days where I had to do other things, the actual writing time was 3 months and 1 day for a 129,000 word novel. That's my job. So I've, even if I'm at a convention, I still have my job to do. And, since I do plot my books out ahead of time, I also use a trick that Dean Koontz claims that he invented, but I'm pretty sure he stole it from Faulkner, because I've heard it from other people, is that when I'm stopping for the day, I leave either a paragraph half done or a sentence half finished, and I come in and just pick up where I left off, and I'm right back in gear. And that really works for me. I don't believe in waiting for the muse to hit me or have to be inspired. I could write in a burning building.
Wow.
So I mean, it sounds like, because you've been writing, you said for a very long time. You've got a lot of writing hours under your belt, and for a lot of newer writers, they're still developing that habit. And it's just like people who have like that average day job. You go to the warehouse and you're stocking shelves. Well, you do that like every day. You can jump in at the warehouse, see a half empty box and know exactly where to put it and just start shelving. You need to get that same habit in your writing, to pick it up wherever.
Yeah.
When I started writing, I was doing magazine feature articles. I was going to college during the day, and I was working as a bodyguard nights and weekends. I had enough time to write one 250-word page a day. So that's what I did. But I did it every day. And if I got home and I'm exhausted, I would write one page. Even if it was garbage, I'd get it done. There are so many ways of making excuses to not write. And, I know I have female friends who raised 4 kids and turned out 1 or 2 books a year. So I don't want to hear that there's no time to write. There is time to write if you prioritize it as something that must be done every day. It's another part of your job. No matter what else you're doing, that's part of your job.
Yeah, trying to start looking at your writing as a job will fix a lot of that. Even when Superstars is going on or something like that, I try to do 500 words a day, and I know that sounds like a lot of small potatoes, and a lot of times, especially during the conference, I didn't get to do it. But so that's a good rule. If you try for 500, you're going to write 1,000. It's just kind of the way it happens when you start thinking about your writing as a career. Also, never be a day away from the manuscript that you're working in. And what I mean by that is some people write Monday through Friday or something like that. Well, when you come back on Monday, you're going to have to get back in the groove. Another thing that makes it easier to write during a break at a conference or something like that, I go back and read the last 2 paragraphs that I wrote, and that'll put you right back in. That'll put you right back into the scene. That's another technique. Drop off in the middle of a scene. If you're done with your writing time, if you're on your lunch break or something like that, leave in the middle of a sentence or in the middle of a scene. That way you go back and you read that last bit of whatever you were writing on, and it's easy to put yourself right back into it.
Yeah, and by the way, saying that 500 words a day isn't that big, that's 182,500 words a year.
Yes, it is.
That's a lot of words. So 500 is an extraordinary amount per day. Since most people skip some days, their daily average is down to a half a sentence.
Yeah.
Anything that you get done on a regular basis is the speed that you're comfortable at. Yeah. And that's the whole. Find that comfortable lane, but you stay in it. You keep going.
So whenever Superstars got over this year, and I told Jonathan about this, I wanted to finish a book, to start a book. My friend Chris and I, we wanted to start a book right after Superstars, and we wanted to finish it by the end of March. And we are doing it. We have a chat group set up where we sprint together, and like Jonathan and I, we sprint sometimes too, and 3,000 words a day right now. And It is so rewarding. Like, I just feel like I stepped right back into the groove after Superstars. But I came out like all charged up,
Right.
after being around my tribe and everything. I was ready to write for sure.
We write, we're not vampires. We're more like symbiotes in that we feed off, but also feed each other. Though I like the vampire analogy more.
I have a question as an attendee. My question is for how do we approach authors that like we're really excited about, but you don't want to come off as like fangirly, or you don't want to, you're they don't know you from Adam, but you want the autograph, or you want that selfie, or you just want to say hi. Like, how do you do that and not be weird?
Well, they never will get to know you if you don't introduce yourself.
Yeah.
So, unless a writer is, first off, a weirdo freak and just like immediately leaves and runs up to his room, most writers do, accept and enjoy meeting the conferees. We're not there just to hear ourselves talk. We're there to communicate with peers. Whether that peer has not yet published or not doesn't matter. I mean, they're writers, we're having a conversation. So if somebody comes up to us and says, well, if it's something like, I want to take a photo, can I take a photo with you? Of course. And why would I say no to that? That's weird. I mean, you have low standards for art, but sure, take the photo. If they say, if they want to say, can you sign a book? Any writer that is not willing to sign a book could be horsewhipped out of town.
And all the books and have all the pens.
Yeah. And if they just want to talk a little bit, talk to them. There's not one person in this business, not one, who did not have help coming up. I mean, I mentioned earlier that I got to know Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson as a kid. I mean, I know how insanely lucky I was. They had no reason to pay attention to me or give me advice. They did because they saw that I was earnest about it, even as a kid. And they said, hey, here's somebody else that could have fun doing what we're doing. And they took time. And that's what all of us should do. Don't be afraid to go up to a writer, except in the bathroom.
Yep. So, yeah, most of them are like that. I think one thing that'll help is going to smaller events. Smaller events mean less competition, getting to ask that one question or getting that one book signed or something like that. They're definitely more intimate. So that's one thing that you can do to help yourself out. Another thing is just be really intuitive. You can tell if somebody, has something going on or something like that. Just, kind of keep your eye out. Also, if pay attention to the program. You can tell if there's only, 10 minutes to get to another room and you're at a very large event venue. That person has to hustle to a different building to be on a panel or something like that. Pay pretty close attention to where they have to go next. If it's like you see them kind of, bumping around in the hallway and it's 20 minutes before their next event or something, most people are going to be just fine with you stopping up and saying, hey, here's my copy of Glimpse or whatever. I loved it. And while they're signing, you can go ahead and pick their brain about what's next or whatever.
And Superstars does a couple things that are really, that kind of promote this. One, during a lot of the downtime, a lot of people just congregate in the bar. Whether you drink or not. One of them too. The writers go there because they want to have conversations with the writers, with the conferees, and then also they have a thing where you can actually, come at the big dinner. You can actually book a spot at a table with one of the writers you like, and have a conversation. And that's fabulous. You have real conversations. You have a lot of fun, and the writer is, if the writer didn't want to have conversations with you, they would not have agreed to be there. So,
yeah, that's one of the things that that they know coming in is we expect everybody to be completely, well, not completely, but mostly like accessible to attendees during the event. In the main room, our main room that's called the Heritage Room, we all sit together. There's not a green room where faculty runs off to or anything. They have seats in the main room with everyone else. We all sit and learn from one another. So,
and now this is not the same in every conference, though. There are some conferences that keep the faculty and the conferees apart. I don't actually like those because to me it's productive to the whole idea of networking and being a tribe and being part of a community that we're all trying to get somewhere. Superstars does it right. They don't
good to hear.
create that barrier,
Yeah. And one other thing about the lobby. So the Antlers Hotel is a historic hotel, and it's gorgeous. And we have this lobby with all these ornate, antique-looking couches, and it's a huge lobby. And so after hours, typically, like, we're all down there in the lobby, and that's where it's really good to kick it into high gear for networking, because making those connections at a conference like Superstars is a huge deal. I always learn from everybody every year. I learn so much, and a lot of it just comes from networking and going to lunch with someone. We do lunch on your own a lot of times. It's like a gaggle of attendees and a couple of our guest instructors, and off they go to lunch. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
and also we do the box lunch where we're sitting in a room. There's a bunch of people with the box lunch, and we just talk.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So we tried. So Chris is our hotel liaison. It was her idea, and we did box lunches this year. And I thought it would be cool to do kind of a thing where new attendees could show up in a room and ask questions, because a lot of newer writers, nerves get to you when you go to a conference like this and you know that you're going to be in the same room with somebody that you idolize or something like that. So I thought it would be really awesome for them to have a place to have a box lunch and just ask some questions. So Chris set up the box lunch thing, and we took over one of the rooms, and I asked Jonathan if he wouldn't mind having a box lunch for a day. And it was great. I mean, they fed us too much in these little boxes. There was an incredible amount of food in there, and it was really cool because we just sort of sat around and talked about what's next, and Tribe were able to just ask questions about stuff and pick Jonathan's brain and stuff. It was really a good time.
Your brain too. They were asking questions about. Some of them were newbies to any conference. They were asking about how to maximize their time at a conference too, and that was really cool. I mean, where else would they get a chance to ask those questions?
That was actually my last question, that exact question. Your top tips, I know we're like a little over time, but your top tips for getting the most out of a conference or convention?
Marie?
Plan ahead. Get on the event website and see who's going to be teaching what, and then filter your plan to get the most out of programming, and then check out what's going to be going on after hours. Like Superstars, every single night there's something going on after hours. Also, make sure if you're going to go to some sort of a con or a conference, see if they're going to have some sort of an app that you can keep on your personal device. Last year was our first year using Sked. We plan to make it more robust, and that's a good way to make sure that you can get enough out of the conference that you're going to go to. Something that's unique to Superstars, we have a big Facebook group, and we also have a secondary group like we're setting up for 2021 right now. So we have a 2021 Facebook group, and 2 years ago I had our social media coordinators start putting a hashtag with your state. So like when someone introduces me to the group, it'll be hashtag Colorado. And then we tell those people to go ahead and search that group for anybody else who has the same hashtag, and then go ahead and start traveling together and compare schedules, because a lot of times it's easy to miss something like that. Stay on top of the event website, because you never know what's going to change. You never know if all of a sudden it's like out of the blue, we got Hugh Howey. So Hugh Howey is going to be, showing up at 2021. We've been trying to jive schedules with Hugh Howey for like 3 or 4 years or something now. So, something else like that might happen at a midpoint. So just keep current with what's going on and what they have to offer.
And one of my favorite things for the teleconferees to do is if they're anywhere near pitching, whether they're looking for an agent or editor, there's an opportunity to meet a lot of agents and editors and pitch to them. They should research those agents and editors well before the conference, so they not only know like just because the agent says they do YA may not be your category of YA. Doesn't mean you can't pitch to them, but understand that this agent may not be the one for you. So you can even say, as you sit down, I know this isn't exactly your wheelhouse, but I wanted to pitch to you because, you're the closest to the mark, and I respect your career, and perhaps you can give me a suggestion of where I can go next. That's the sort of thing that impresses an agent or an editor, because it shows that you're business savvy. Yeah. So if you do a little bit of homework before you get there, you're actually proving that you are ready to take that next step into the business.
Exactly. One other thing, even if they're not an agent or something like that, say somebody finds out that Jonathan Maberry is going to come to Superstars, read a book. So maybe there's somebody out there that might not have heard of Jonathan Maberry by now. If we find out that there's going to be a new author that has the accomplishments that we have in mind, and we want to kind of see how they got to where they are, something like that, and you haven't read them, read their stuff. That way you'll be able to understand what the heck they're talking about easier.
And actually, that's important too. If you're a guest there, read some of the books of the other guests. Become familiar with your fellow colleagues and teachers at the event. I first read a Jim Butcher book because of the panel I was on with Kevin and Jim at DragonCon. I hadn't read any of his Files books, and I liked the guy. I liked what he was saying. I liked his personality. So I went up, before the conference, I had picked up one of his books during the conference. After that panel, I went up reading it. Now I'm friends with the guy, and big fan. So even as a professional going there, become familiar with the published works of the people who are there.
That is a lot of really great advice. Stay on top of schedule, be flexible, be personable, and be aware of what all those panelists, are about. I like that. Pick up at least one book you can get, especially like if they're, an Amazon Kindle Unlimited with some of their books, you can get sample reads. Sometimes that can even be enough to at least get an idea of what they're about and all that good stuff.
One other thing also, I know that we're really over time or whatever, but consider your brand from the get-go. Be branded when you go to any conference or any con at all. Superstars is a business conference. It is about the business of writing, but it is a business conference. So business casual, I'm not saying I'm not saying don't wear jeans, but don't wear holy jeans or whatever, people are going to remember you from that first glance. So if you're just coming up and starting to work really hard on your writing, consider your branding from day one.
Yeah, and one last point about branding also. Every good conference has their own hashtags on social media. If you're thinking about going to a conference, start looking up those hashtags from previous years and get a sense of what people have been saying about it. If there are a lot of people who go out there, they'll post pictures, they'll make comments, they'll even post video clips that they shouldn't be taking, but they do anyway. Go see what the reaction is, and try to get a sense. If you see somebody who's been posting 3-4 years in a row, there's a reason they're coming back to that con. So get a sense of what the loyalty is on conferees. People don't generally come back to a bad con. They come back to good cons. So get it, follow the social media comments and get a sense of the temperature, the flavor of that con.
I think our return rate is between 65 and 70% or something like that, which is huge.
Totally huge.
For something like this. Our hashtag, by the way, since you brought it up, is #SuperstarsWriting. We're on Twitter now. This is something new that we kind of just started last year at Superstars Write, and we also have a public Facebook page. So follow us there for all of these updates that we're getting ready to start spitting out updates about all of our lineup. And our lineup is the biggest that we've ever had coming up for 2021.
All right. There's so many tips, tricks, and everything in this episode right now. And I use some of the same ones, going to the 20 books conference. It's,
I will see you there. I get to teach there this year. I'm pretty excited about it.
For that one. I can't wait.
It's a great conference.
November cannot come soon enough.
Yes, I'm super excited for 20 bucks.
Yes. Yes. So with that, thank you so much, you guys, for coming on, and especially coming on a Saturday, an odd day for us for our show, and hanging out with us extra time, sharing all your wisdom to all the viewers, all the listeners out there. And of course, I mean, tentacle fingers. I mean, if y'all aren't watching live, then you just missed all the tentacles. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, smash the bell button, and let us know what you think of the show. We want to deliver you what you want to learn, because we are the Writer's Journey here on Keystroke Medium, talking about reading, writing, and everything in between.